Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Friday morning discussion groups once again. We have an interesting title for you this morning. It is by our friend Patsy Staddon, and I think I've got it right when I say it is homelessness and ducks flying around. Intriguing. Tell us more, Patsy.
Thank you. Do I have to do anything except go into my presentation now? I can just start talking, is that right?
Yeah, you can introduce yourself, say what you want to do, and start your presentation whenever you like, Patsy.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm a member of the Bristol Central Discussion Group, and I wanted to talk today. I mean, I knew all the time what I wanted to talk about, but I really struggled to find titles. And I started off thinking, well, it all started off with my homelessness. That's how that's where I wanted to talk, something I wanted to talk about, and how isolated people can feel. And I wanted to make sure that I connected that with, I had 20 years of trying to get out of alcohol addiction. And a lot of things happened in that 20 years. And I wanted to pick out the things that I thought were useful, because the big deal, it seemed to me, was to work out why. This is a big thing for me. I actually celebrated, I stopped drinking on November the 16th, 1988. So very, very close to an anniversary today. And people say, oh, well done. And I think, no, it's not well done, because I stopped needing the stuff. Why? Why is it that so many people don't manage to stop needing it? They may struggle and succeed in not drinking, but that's not quite the same thing. And this is really, to me, the real nub of it. What is it that gets in the way? The research I did was trying to sort of centre on women, it would be getting in their way, what got in their way. But I did more and more, I think it's not really, it applies almost as much to men. So I'm just going to centre on people, okay? So I put it into a presentation because I thought it would stop me wambling around. Now all I've got to do is get the darn thing up. I'm near there. Don't go away. Yeah. Okay, all right. No, I can't see you. That's the only thing. So, I'm assuming you can hear me, because I think somebody will ring me up and tell me if you can't. So, homelessness and ducks flying around, hiccups on the way to alcohol recovery. After all, okay. Can you all both see the screen and hear me?
We've got you. Lovely. Thank you.
And I guess you heard me before, did you?
Yep. We can hear you, and we can see you on the right, and we can see your first slide.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to mute now until you.
Well, don't go away, David, in case something goes wrong.
Okay.
Right. Okay. No, I called it a kind of homelessness, and goodness knows a lot of homelessness was involved. I would find a bed set and I'd make it like home, find a few things that I'd managed to keep with me, a few books, maybe, some couple of photographs. I might even have managed to hold on to a radio. And then I'd go and get something to drink. And the next thing I knew, everybody wanted me to leave, and they were turning their backs in the kitchen when I went in, and everybody was so embarrassed because of things I had no idea what I'd done. No idea. I just knew that I'd gone out and got a drink. I could probably remember that, but not the rest. And, I was saying to myself in the end, well, what do you expect? You're an alcoholic. It's always going to be like this. So often I couldn't get anybody even to look after my stuff after I would get turned out on the spot. I don't know if that was legal, but I did used to get turned out on the spot. It happened more than once. And so I did end up down on the street, literally. No, there was nowhere else to go. Nobody would look after my things, so I had to have them with me, what was left. People are very friendly, actually, when you're in that position. They don't care where you came from or what you're wearing, or, it's quite nice, really. People do share what they've got with them. They even share booze, which is quite something. And other things that I was not very interested in the other things, luckily. So the night would pass and we would have people come round with soup and stuff sometimes. And other people, quite often, they didn't realise you were male or female because you'd be all rolled up in a lot of clothes. I know I was. It was cold. You were just a lump, really. But people were often nice, and they'd come round saying, "Are you all right?" and so on. I am going back a few years, by the way, and it may be that alcohol people and drug people get a better deal from the voluntary services now. I don't know that it's very likely, but this would be in the 1980s. And then as it got light, people would sort of drift off or they go to sleep. And I'd have to find somewhere I could clean up a bit and look a bit respectable and see if I could find somewhere to stay that was a bit more reasonable than the street for that next night. So that was what I mean. I would have been drifting from address to address, which I would explain a little bit more in a different context in a minute. Why did it take me 20 years? I mean, I would say my drinking became a problem in my mid-20s, although I think my parents thought it was a problem from the age of about 17. And it hurts and puzzles me that I made it. I do not miss alcohol at all, and that has been the case for many years. I would say, golly, I don't know how many years, but a lot. Why do some people not do that? Nobody likes being an alcoholic, being an outcast from their family and their friends and from society. It's not fun. I mean, I guess it sometimes has its moments, all the 20 minutes, maybe. But why is it that people with everything to gain from stopping don't or can't? I mean, they will stop, but they don't stay stopped for very long. And as I say, that pains me. That's something I would do anything to try and change. So I was just going to say, first of all, I must make sure I don't talk too long on this. Obviously, it's easy to talk about yourself. What got in the way of my recovery? Why? I mean, I had everything to lose. I had got married. I got 2 children. I was living in a nice part of the country. I had a good job. And really, I had everything to lose. But no, I couldn't seem to do it. So what were the things that got in the way? First thing was, all my life, really, I had felt wretched being a girl. I didn't know that there were any changes that I could have made. In fact, in those days, there weren't. You didn't hear about things like being trans or something. Never heard of it. I just thought it was more fun to be like the boys. And I used to go out drinking with the boys and making a total fool of myself because I wasn't very big, And, alcohol and body weight are connected. I just looked ridiculous. But I couldn't bear the role that was given to me for being a girl. So, I got into feminism as soon as I found out about it. And many years later, I heard about being trans, and I wondered if perhaps that was, I don't know. Anyway, that's not relevant to this presentation, but I was wretched being a girl. I thought I looked very ugly, and I must say, I do think I look better in less femmy clothes. What else got in the way of me stopping drinking? whenever I fell in love, you get a high when you fall in love. You get a high from lots of things, but I mean, we don't tend to call it getting a high, but it is. And I used to confuse one thing with another. So if I was really excited about something, and it could be falling in love, I would drink. I thought they were connected because the first time I'd experienced it was alcohol. So it made sense to me if I thought about it at all. On the whole, though, I was just bewildered. I couldn't understand why some really, really wonderful things like falling in love with a person could end up with it being in ruins because of how I behaved towards them or with them because of my drinking. And to me, they were connected, but not in a way that I could understand. Yeah, what got in the way? Despite my drinking, I did manage to hold it together quite well initially in my marriage with the children. I.e., I didn't do any drinking in the daytime. And I actually cut out drinking completely for 2 years. And then one day, it was a nice day, and we went out, and I just had a half pint of cider. You know, you would think, wouldn't you? Well, you'd be wrong. I would say 2 weeks later, I was hiding the bottles. And anyway, this started me off again. And this time, you see, I had more money in those days. So it was no longer a question of getting hold of the alcohol, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a year. We're talking about every day because I could. And the marriage fell to pieces. My husband got custody of the children. All of our friends, almost without exception, all of our friends just didn't want to know me because they thought it was so terrible that I had let the family down and left them. I mean, I left them by mutual consent because it was the best thing for everyone to do. At least that's what we thought. And I left, so that made me a pariah. And I lost my home. So that got in my way, the way of my recovery. Because as soon as I started to try to get a grip on living without alcohol, I mean, I was so unhappy. I was so depressed. It would drag me down again. Next thing I did was I got a job in the city in London. It was in the accountancy industry. I was selling accountants to accountancy firms, basically. A lot of work was done in lunchtime over alcohol. And other people could keep a lid on that, but not me. I did for a bit, and I did sometimes, but you couldn't rely on me. I would tend to keep on after lunch. So I lost 2 jobs in the city. I lost my city friends who were actually really nice. My mother died, and I inherited her house, and I'll just say I lost it. And my shame over that hits me hard often because my parents really struggled to get that house, and I lost it. And then there's a whole series of rented rooms, afraid of meeting people. So again, how can you get over it when, everything reminds you of what you've lost? There's no way you can explain to people who you are and what you're about because you're so deeply ashamed of what you think you're about. It's like you're locked in. I, of course, went to AA many times, and I stuck with it sometimes. Many AA people were really kind too, I will say that. They really were. I think what got to me was 2 things, really. I found that whenever I shared my life with a group, it would end up with at least one male AA member who became over-friendly in a way that I didn't want. And people did have very fixed views about what I ought to do and those ways just didn't seem to suit me. So my fault maybe, but it wasn't a good place for me. So in the end, there I was, sort of stuck on my own, really. So as you all know, I did get over it. I stopped drinking in 1988, and what I want to say next is what got in other women's way. So we've seen what stopped me being able, despite the fact that I went to AA, met some good people in AA, had everything to lose, and I went on losing, right to down. I still couldn't stop. Okay, what about other women? Shame gets in the way. This is as in research, doctoral research, and before that, research for the University of Bristol, and I've done research for Wolverhampton as well. Shame. It actually makes you drink, if you like. You can't bear it. It's so terrible what you've done. Your picture of yourself is so frightful. You turn to alcohol. You're too scared and depressed to talk to anyone. This was coming back from so many women. It was a huge leap to manage to talk to anyone about it at all. So talking to me had sort of leap. Sometimes, though, they were holding it together to an extent, as I did for a long time, or for a while. Their lives were too busy for them to take time to, well, going to an AA group, for example, is such a big step. And going for alcohol treatment, that's a very big step. If you've got a job and or children, it's asking a big thing of you. Some of the ones who went to AA, maybe I shouldn't have put this in, because I really don't want to be seen as someone who's anti-AA. I'm only saying AA didn't work for me and many women that I worked with. That doesn't mean it didn't work for anyone else. But they found the language outdated and it upset them. Some of them went to see their doctor. They found that the doctors didn't understand about alcohol use, really. Didn't seem to know very much at all. Later on, I was allowed to attend some GP training, and I discovered the minimal extent of alcohol training that they got, and I was very, very shocked. That when I made that investigation, that was 2005, a long time ago now, I know. I really hope that by now it's quite different. The big problem too was codependency. The strong likelihood was that their partner still drank. They weren't necessarily problem drinkers, mind. Excuse me. Forgot to get myself a drink first. It was just the fact that they didn't want there to be no drink in the house. They like to have a drink for when they, non-problem drinkers could have it. So turning the house into a totally alcohol-free zone, that was a very difficult thing to do. And yet it really did help people. Even if they weren't going to actually go for total abstinence, it still helped a lot not to have the darn stuff in front of them all the time. I mean, this doesn't, just for general information, this doesn't have to be a lifelong thing, the absence of alcohol in the house. I mean, for example, I do get wine in for people if they're coming for a meal. Actually, I don't at the moment because I can't afford it, but certainly I have to. And what I do is they open it and they take it away. And then I'm not tempted, but whether I would be tempted, I can't tell you because don't appear to be anymore. But it's a big problem for people that, you need to have partners who are supportive. And it involves big sacrifices, really. The family can be a massive handicap, which is awful, because they want to help. Of course they want to help. But they don't really respect you anymore. It's very difficult. I've got a very good idea of the kind of anguish, which I called them, children particularly, at school because the kids got to hear about it. So I don't blame them. I feel bad, but I don't blame them. I really don't. I'm sorry they can't get over it, but they can't. And for many people, it's just a vicious circle. Their family, the people they most need to support them and love them, are too damaged themselves by what's gone on. And this is a vicious circle for women and men. It's a vicious circle. They're going back to the alcohol to cheer them up, to make them feel better, to make life tolerable. And some of them, with or without the alcohol, life is not tolerable and they don't continue it. I know of many people who, and I knew, of all the people I was in, I went to a recovery scheme at one point with the Robert Smith unit, and I kept in touch with the people I went through that with. And I think only one of them out of about 20 is alive today. Oh, me, too. Okay, well, that's all very depressing. But what helped us to get past these and other setbacks? Well, some of us, like me, were lucky enough to get uncritical, unconditional support. It's a rare thing. It's very difficult to give. For one person, it's a darn miracle if they can do it. So the best thing is if you can have more people than one person offering you this kind of support. You shouldn't be living with them, really. You should be living separately. It's just too hard for the other person otherwise. Counselling, terribly important, because one of the many reasons that you're drinking is that you haven't got a clue who you are. If you knew who you are to start with, you don't know where you are by now. You don't know who you are by now. You don't want somebody who will offer you counselling for life, but you do want to go for counselling for, I don't know, a year, maybe, at a time. And then you move on. You are moving on all the time. Once you're not drinking, you are growing up. It takes a long time. I had actually, horrific but true, I had actually started doing my alcohol interviews. So at 15 years after I stopped drinking, I was doing my alcohol interviews. I was on my 4th lot of counselling. And I only realised then that I was really only just coming out of recovery, if you see what I mean. I know a lot of people don't like you to say you're finished. They say you are always in recovery, and there is a sense in which that's true, actually. But I think I was pretty well grown up, put it that way, at the time I started doing the research work. I hope so. Very important to improve your self-image. And lots of ways you can do that. You can take, with support from the right kind of friends, you can take up stuff like running. It could be keep fit. It can be anything. I did painting. Behind me, you'll sometimes see, here, a painting that most people think is a child's painting that I've affectionately put out, but it's not. It's a painting I did in a painting group that, well, I actually started it. It was in alcohol recovery. They gave us paints to use, and I got a lot out of painting. And although I have no skills whatsoever, it did the job for me. It made me feel, I don't know, more creative, more positive, more able to take on new things. It was wonderful. So I kept that picture and it's up on the wall. This isn't tongue-in-cheek, really, but making connections with God can help. You can't. Not everybody feels able to do it, and I didn't feel able to do it straight away. I'd had connections. In that sense, I had been part of different religions at different points in my life, but I wasn't really with it doing that at this point. I was trying to make connections with, I don't know, the sky would be a good way to put it. And the word God wouldn't have been one that I would have used. But in a sense, it was a sense of infinity. No, that's better. I was feeling that there was something bigger than me, and that it and I had something to do with each other. That's a terrible way of putting it. I'm sorry. You need to learn to eat properly. Learning to eat properly has taken me most of my life. I'm nearly there. But really, it does help. It makes you feel more competent. You're slimmer. People usually. You look better. You feel better. But you need to learn it. Most people seem to think you know how to do it. And I guess on paper you do. But this connection with your body, this idea that your body needs nutrition, has been terribly damaged by all the time in which you woke up and you were thinking, how soon in the day could you have the drink? And at the worst end, of course, you wake up and you reach for the drink. But even when it wasn't that bad, eating was secondary to drinking. You know, what wine do we have? What shall we have with it? You know, that needs a lot of relearning. You really do need friends, not just these uncritical, unconditional, supportive people, but you need to locate friends who don't drink. That is a terrible, difficult thing for people because alcohol is so normal in our society. It's what people do when they celebrate. It's what people do as relaxation. It's perfectly normal. So locating friends who will be able to go out and do things with you and will want to and won't mind if you're not drinking. And also you've not got to mind where they're drinking. That is really difficult for people. I assure you it can be done. I have been doing it now for an awfully long time. I was cautious at first, you know. The first thing I did, if I wanted to meet other lesbians, I'm skipping the bit where I decided that's what I was. If I wanted to meet them, it was always clubs and pubs, and they were always drinking. So a tip, which I will pass on in case anyone hears this and thinks it would be useful. I used to have dark Coke in a pint glass. I'd get them to put two lots of dark Coke in this glass, and I could be carrying that and swigging from it. And nobody knew any different. And it stopped people offering me drinks and stuff because they could say I already have one. And it stopped me feeling tempted. Except, as I say, I tell you the truth, I never did feel tempted. It just went away from me, which is, I know, but it did. It just went away. And I don't think it has done that for other people, some other people, but I know many people it doesn't. So that's a useful tip. Dark Coke in a pint glass. You build these things up brick by brick over the years. So these are the things that help me and other people. There are others, but I don't want to tire people out. Those things are useful for many people. I think most of all, and this is me today, we need to be trusted. I'm thinking of my family, because other people that I meet, they see me. I'm an elderly woman now. I'm clearly not a drinker. Why should they think of me as a drinker? So we're looking at people who've known me a long time, my family. My family, I feel, don't trust me. And I think other people wouldn't trust me. I'm taking a risk. Even today, I'm coming out, except I've been out to you people before, you know, but it's coming out to say, yes, I used to be an alcoholic. I was in recovery for many years. I do consider myself to have recovered. Although many people don't like you to say that, they think it puts you at risk to think you've recovered. And maybe for some people it does. It doesn't matter though. The point is, whatever we say, you must believe us. If we say we've recovered, trust me, we've recovered. You have to trust us because there's nothing more crippling than not being trusted. It's how you help us to be the people that we should have been, we could have been, and we're trying to be now. It helps if you can trust us to be the people we say we are. We will already have had a really hard time stopping, whether we stopped yesterday or 35 years ago. It will have been a tough road. And for everyone concerned, our families, the people who've loved us, some of whom have given up in despair, some of whom have died, and some of whom today are turning their backs. But the future can still be very bright. There's still possibilities. The ones with their backs turned can turn around, and maybe people who don't feel they can trust us now will trust us eventually. Okay, that's my last screen, and I just think I don't quite know now how to end, David. How?
Just click stop sharing at the top.
Right. I have no idea what the time is. What a relief to see that I haven't overrun. I didn't know that would happen. That one can't see the clock. I hope I didn't go too much over target, because the target, it's very difficult not to. I mean, everything's intertwined really. It's very difficult to stick with what I wanted to say, was how important it is to get your ducks in a row, and how difficult it is because you keep falling over the damn ducks, and the ducks principally are outside you. They're not in here at all. You could have done that. So you stop drinking, and people are still trying to trip you up. Anyway, I think I'll shut up about that aspect. Would anyone like to ask anything?
Patsy, that's brilliant. It's 11:40, so we've got easily 20 minutes. And you're so disarming and open and honest and authentic about what's a really difficult topic. And we all have things that we're, ashamed of, and addictive tendencies, which may not be alcohol, and things that, we feel uncomfortable talking about. And, by your example and through what you've lived through, you're making life better for other people. I'm really moved by, the honesty, and your presentation is lovely. The way that you pick your points and you comment on your process, it's all lovely. So thank you.
Thank you.
I haven't got, I can think of a couple of instances in my past where I have had alcoholism in my family or in a working situation with a work partner, and how difficult it has been, and how unresourced I have been to deal with that. So I think it's as important for people who have any problem to know how to deal with it, as well as all the other stuff. How do you tackle trauma? How do we deal with all those things? So it's I think this is a hugely important topic for society. And you're so lovely in the way that you are authentic and honest, and you've gone into it in such depth to understand it and to be able to help others recover. Brilliant. I've seen other people nodding, but I want to hear from them too as well. So I'm going to shut up. Just thank you.
The media, some of the media would have us believe that kind of alcohol and alcoholics are from a working class or poor background. Would I be right in saying this is totally fallacious comment?
Yes, you would. Definitely fallacious. I expect they went to AA groups for some reason that I haven't quite fathomed. Well, I can work it out actually. There's certain classes of people that just, where should I start? This is from observation. This is only. This isn't from research. From observation, AA groups do tend to be mainly male, and I do think the males there find it comforting. They're finally actually speaking about something which is painful and terrible. So I can see I imagine what it might be is that males who have got, we'll say, more to lose publicly would be scared of going into. In fact, I think they'd be perfectly safe, but still, they could well be scared of going to such a place. And yet, those are the places most visited and talked about by researchers. So that's a big, fund of material which is overexploited. That's not where I don't think it's where most of the drinking. I should imagine, this is imagining, the upper classes do most because they can afford it. It's expensive stuff, when you're drinking a lot. And it's easier too. The more money you've got, the easier it is to hide it. I mean, when I was a girl, a working class girl, going out on binges with the boys, there was no way I could hide that. I just looked ridiculous, etc. And everybody knew. But when I got married and got a responsible job, I was able to hide my drinking actually right to the end as far as work was concerned, because I didn't do it in the day. I did it in the evening. And, I was drinking more expensive stuff that I could hide the expenditure on. And I've forgotten your question now. I've started talking again. I'm really sorry. Ray, can you...
Yeah, I think you answered it in the set. Yes, if you're richer, you can cover up your alcoholism a lot more and for a lot longer than you can if you're the kind of working class person who drinks kind of the rough ciders and the type of stuff like that, rather than the large bottles of brandy and whiskey and stuff like that.
Yes.
I knew a deputy head teacher who was drinking vodka during the day, and as it was kind of, as it doesn't smell on your breath, he was able to bring in bottles in other types of stuff and all this type of thing, and so it was only found out in the end because he overdid it, and in a class of teenagers just went ape. So anyway, I think Hattie has asked a couple of questions. Hattie, would you like to?
You're muted.
Yeah, for some reason, Hattie is not able to speak. She's put that in the chat. She's made one comment and one question. Comment is that the richer drink more. It's another reason alcoholism has generally gone up because of more disposable income available these days. But her question is, what resources have you found to support people with alcohol problems? Is that good, Hattie? If you need more, put it in the chat.
Right. Okay. Well, currently, I don't know what to say, because I think what is available is pretty unsatisfactory. One thing a person can do is they can go to their GP, that is assuming they can get an appointment, and the GP can. It is true, it's very hard to get a GP appointment. And then, provided the GP you've got is a sympathetic one, they can refer you to alcohol help up at Southmead Hospital. What most people don't know is you can actually go directly to the drug and alcohol unit at Southmead Hospital. Although, of course, they may be crowded out and saying, no, we've got a waiting list 3 years long. But you can. You are able to do that rather than go through your GP. So that is perhaps worth knowing. I think they're quite good up there, actually. Except that I think their attitude is wrong, because they deal most with the alcohol and the drug itself. Also, the majority of people who go there are drug users. I think alcohol users have they will try harder to camouflage their problem, which they can do because everybody drinks alcohol, so that's not so difficult. They do seem to have more drug people go there than alcohol people, but they're friendly and helpful in my experience. So that's worth something. And I'm sorry, that's all I'm currently connected with. I'm sorry not to be more use than that. If it's a man, it's worth contacting AA. A lot of men do quite well with AA. So I wouldn't want to put anybody off that. I wouldn't put anyone off AA anyway. But I would say that for women, it might not be the best route. Somebody's going to shoot one of these things. I'm waiting here.
And Hattie, acting as a glove puppet for Hattie, she's written, "Where could I look to find how to support my friends and, to support people with alcohol problems?" That is.
I think we need to start something. I've been publishing I have published in academically, but I've also published in other places in which I make recommendations that what should be started is something like, we had Women's Independent Alcohol Support, which was basically a collective of women, of whom the majority had alcohol addiction in the past, but were considered themselves to be recovered, and other people who had certain skills, like we had a trained counsellor, for example, and we all worked for nothing. And I did the fundraising, and we did events all over the place. We ran courses, we had a helpline, and we had a regular drop-in session on Fridays. And we kept it up for 7 years. And I just collapsed. I could not keep going with trying to find the money. So belatedly, I'm now publishing about what we did in the Quaker Alcohol and Drug mag. And what I am hoping that enough people will come together and say, look, this is a really great way to tackle helping, not maybe men and women with alcohol issues, and let's get the money together, because that's what it was. The only reason we stopped was nobody except me was prepared to do the work, to do the funding, as well as everything else. It wasn't just, and I don't blame them, because it's a massive job. You need training too. You really could do with a skilled fundraiser, and I think very many of us would volunteer again. But I personally, to be honest, couldn't hold it together because I couldn't do the funding, run the ship and everything else. And I was afraid we'd fail in what we were doing. So after 7 years, we closed. But I would be interested in opportunities in the future. You never know who's listening. Beauty of YouTube.
I wonder if that might somehow fit in with more general support for trauma and just general health in communities. At the moment, it seems that a lot of the services that we have are under attack, and a lot of the services that we have are dealing with the emergency end of a problem rather than with general wellness. We have a whole economy that's focused on profit and GDP, and we actually need a society that's focused on wellness and healthiness and thriving. So, I mean, I think your burnout doing it on your own is just a sign of our society not being resourceful enough to really be, we had this thing where Margaret Thatcher said society didn't even exist, and that was a sort of sign that we'd reached the end of a kind of line, and we need to get back to the point where societies and communities are being seen as central, and health in societies is central. That doesn't help the present situation, but I think that what you're doing and what you're talking about here, Patsy, is a wonderful resource.
The thing is, I think people would, not necessarily the same people, but although maybe, but I think that people would, it's remarkable how generous people are with their time. I think if one can get just that central bit of money, the funding, for the structure, basically, so that people can get on with what they set out to do, I mean, we tried so hard. I mean, we would have people in the rain going up and down Park Street with buckets, we really, we really tried. But if you could only have that put in place, I do believe the volunteers would come forward, volunteers with expertise. I mean, we had a trained counsellor, for example, giving up a day a week to work with us. I mean, the fact that people will go that far. Somebody who could have been earning her living to a higher standard chose to do that instead. So to me, that was quite a big thing. It proved to me that people will actually work for nothing, even if there are people who actually need to get a wage in. So if you could put the structure in, you could have some people working for money, those who needed to, and you could have those people who could volunteer. I do actually think we could do it. I mean, I would say the project was successful. What I can't do is produce figures, and of course that was always a difficulty with funding. But I couldn't because people were given anonymity, so I had to trust in money that I could raise really by giving my word. I could say how many people came. We would run courses. I could say how many people came to the courses. I could say how many people. I could do things like that, but it was rough estimates all the time, and I couldn't prove it, basically, without going against the principle on which we were based, which was we were not going to use people's names unless they volunteered them. So not many people wanted to do that. So, oh dear, I've waffled on again. Sorry. So I would say it was successful because I know we saved lives. I know that. And I know of people who contact me today and are grateful and happy. So yes, but not in the way that gets you money, because you can say, look, here's this figure. It's, So yes, but.
Graham?
Oh.
Thank you, Patsy. Did you appeal to Quad? Quaker Action on Alcohol and Drugs, and of course gambling now?
No, not done.
Funding for the project you set up, because at one time Quad had a very substantial bequest and were certainly then able to make grants. Perhaps you linked up with Quad more recently.
Yes, that's it, Graham. What did I first know about quads? Only a couple of years ago, and it was after the first time I heard that I could get help from the Quakers. You see, I'm a new Quaker. I've only been I've lost count of the years, but it's more like 5 years, and maybe somebody else can remember better than me. I don't know. When I first started up here, I don't know. I would say about 5 years, and so this is going back. Because we wound up actually 2019 is when we closed, and I hadn't heard of Quad then. I have been writing for Quad since, and so that's if they were to say, yeah, this looks like something we could support, I would certainly be very keen to see if we could get something of the same sort together again. But we were ships that passed in the night, in a sense.
Christopher.
How much money are we talking about, Patsy?
Oh dear.
run it for a year?
I don't know. I'd have to go back. I haven't got figures like that with me. I've got access to them. I could get them because we did have a treasurer. We had a really good treasurer, and she kept the books. So I've got the books. So I could tell you, but I can't at the moment. I'm awfully sorry. But basically, it was just we didn't pay the councillor.
Yeah, I know it
we
wasn't
didn't
a
pay
great
them.
deal, but I couldn't remember how much it was. So
No.
the other, just a point on that, if you've got records and the thing never starts again, do consider depositing them with the city archives, because it was a Bristol-based organisation, and you can put closed periods on it so that nobody's names, yeah. So right.
No, thank you. Yeah. No, I've got it all together. It's surrounding me now because I've been writing this article for the Quads magazine, and so I've got paper on all sides, and it's all wise, the women's independent alcohol support stuff. Not the financial records; they're actually in the roof. I have to say, because they're rather a lot of material. But,
David?
Yeah, just supplementary from Hattie. She says, just to say, I like the person and need to reinforce that to them. Keep offering them contact which suits me too, no alcohol or drugs, and can be fun or nice, not be critical. It's almost like being a counsellor with a friend is what Hattie's saying. And she asks as a sort of maybe a good closing point, was your project successful? And, how would you judge that?
I would say the number of people that I occasionally meet on the street in Bristol. I have met on the street in Bristol, and they're looking happy and well, and they're pleased to see me. And people ring me up. Obviously, not 100% of the people ring me up and say, "Great, I haven't had to drink." This doesn't happen. But I get positive responses from people now. And I did at the end. We did used to do what's it sheets at the end of all the courses. We asked people to give comments on how they'd experienced it. Usually we'd get, when we run our courses, we used to run three courses a year, and on average 10 women would sign up, and I suppose about 6 of them would turn up, and they would, maybe 5 of those would stay till the end. Which probably sounds pathetic, but it was great because those 5 women really did well and really made connections with each other, as well as learning a lot about their lives. A lot of them went on to counselling, either with our counsellor or with counsellors they paid later on. It felt successful. I really hated stopping, but I knew I was going to have a nervous breakdown if I went on trying to fund it and run it. And nobody else seemed able to do that. So at present, but sorry. Are there any more questions? Or yeah, sorry.
I think there is, from the very radical side, there is the statement that alcohol and nicotine are poisons. Therefore, we should be treating them as such. As I say, it's a very radical view, but I don't think it will be in government at any time soon, but I still think it's a moot point.
I wouldn't disagree. Some people seem able to handle poison effectively, and some of us can't, or don't do it very well, at least. But it's a good description, because you are severely affecting your cognitive faculties when you take in substances. And yeah, they can have exciting effects, but they leave you a bit weaker, like the pulling on a string, you know, keep tugging, and the string gets weaker. And yeah, I think it's dangerous stuff.
Any more questions and comments, friends? Or comments, I should say. Okay. Well, I think everybody would agree that that was, as I said at the start, a interesting and illuminating conversation.
Thank you.
And as I would say usually, because as my brothers and sisters will tell you, I'm a bear of very little brain. What is happening next week, Patsy?
Mary.
Mary is
do you want to say anything?
Hello, I'm in Southmead Hospital, so it may look a bit funny.
Sorry.
At 11:30 next week, Susie Griffin, who is an experienced yoga teacher, is speaking, but the suggestion is we all come online at 2 o'clock. Sorry,
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. And I tried to stimulate a discussion about your own experiences of yoga, or what you actually think it is. So I hope that goes okay. And
Sounds
thank
good.
you for your talk
Yeah.
today. It's brilliant.